Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Monday. It's great to be with you. My name is Jerry Miller. I thoroughly enjoy connecting with you on this platform. Thank you kindly for joining us on Charlottesville, Albemarle County, across Central Virginia, and since we're on social media, across the world. We have a fantastic show lined up with Leontyne Peck. She's going to join us to spotlight the namesake of Charlottesville, Virginia. We're going to take kind of like a historical perspective on the I Love CVille show, and then we're going to weave it into current events in today's time. Some questions that I would like to ask, that I think need to be asked. Why do we not have a celebration for Queen Charlotte in Charlottesville, Virginia? This town is named after Queen Charlotte, yet there's no major party or holiday or parade or bands and inviting the community from a big-time epicenter type standpoint. We need to do that. Here's another question that I have for you guys. Why is there no statue in Charlottesville city limits that champions and puts on a pedestal African-American man or woman? Why is there none? Okay, that's something that needs to be discussed and put in the spotlight, and I'm certainly going to do this here on the I Love CVille show. We're very excited to welcome Leontyne in a matter of seconds, in a matter of moments here to the program. Before we do, let's thank some of the folks that make the program possible. First, Intrastate Pest and Service Companies. I don't know if you know this, but Intrastate Pest and Service Companies is a four generation strong business. Started in 1969 with one man and one truck. He had the dream to build a business. He would go to the first home, service the business, and then he would head immediately to a payphone where he would call from a payphone his second customer and say, "May I come to your house now?" Today, Intrastate Pest and Service Companies, 4 generations strong, with the headquarters right around the corner from Bodo's Bagels on Harris, an office in Richmond, an office in the Shenandoah Valley, and a Commonwealth-wide footprint. We are their proud advertising agency of record. We are the proud ad agency of record as well for Dr. Scott Wagner. Who's got your back? Dr. Scott Wagner's got your back. Chiropractic care, sports medicine, physical therapy. He is changing people's lives, one person at a time. Herb Porter, I love you. I see you watching. Thank you, Herb Porter, a leader in our community, for helping make this program and this interview possible. Love you, Herb Porter. Tiny Rice, thank you kindly for joining us on the show. A lot of people watching: John Hill, Lisa Anderson, Laura Jackson, Rachel Burns, Tim Ryan, Chris Henderson. We have people watching from D.C. to Richmond to Southwestern Virginia, Philadelphia, and also in North Carolina. Wow. Harris Tolber, we will welcome you to the program, our director. I'm excited for this program. My friend, what are you excited about today?
I'm excited about this program as well. We have an expert, a historical expert, Leontyne Peck, is going to explain a little bit about Charlottesville's history. And I think that for all our history buffs out there, this is going to be really entertaining to learn a little bit more about Charlottesville, the city we live in. And I think that it's going to be very interesting to hear. So I'll throw it back to you, Jerry.
Well said, Harris Tolbert. That was very flawless from you, my friend. Let's go to the studio cam, and let's welcome Leontyne to the show. You're on camera.
Thank you.
First, I want to say I am absolutely grateful for you changing your schedule up. I'm absolutely grateful to sit next to you.
Thank you.
I would like to, before we get to Queen Charlotte, we ask the first same starting question for everybody. It's the birth story or the flip book of your life.
Yes.
Passions, hobbies, interests, who you are as a woman, who you are as a person, what you love to do with life.
Okay. Gee, I didn't expect that question, but I think I can answer that. First of all, I want to thank you for giving us a platform to be on the show. We really do appreciate it. We're just an informal little group. We only have a meeting once a year, and that's via the computer to celebrate Queen Charlotte. But just a little bit about me. I've lived in this community going on 16 years. My passions are history, genealogy, and, of course, my family. So anything that's that my family finds interesting, I do too. But I do love Charlottesville. I do love the history of this area, the good and the bad. You have to know the good and the bad. And so I've been, fortunate to volunteer to try to make some changes in this community. So that's my background. My professional background was in community and economic development, but history really is my passion.
I love it. I love it. Turn that into a highlight reel, a sizzle reel. That was a fantastic first answer. I might mess up your name here, but Lineal Naylor. Lineal Naylor says, you look absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. She's one of my genealogy friends.
She's giving you some props. Tiny Rice, who I think is watching in West Virginia.
We went to high school together. Hi, Tiny.
She says, you look beautiful, and I can't wait for this interview.
Thank you.
Lineal says, I'm planning to visit the area very soon, so get ready, baby.
Look me up.
Look me up. Hit me up.
We're on a tour.
All right, let's talk about this. Queen Charlotte. The who, what, when, where, and why.
Okay. Queen Charlotte, of course, Charlottesville is named in her honor. Charlottesville was established in 1762, and Queen Charlotte became married to King George III in 1761. So the city is named in her honor. There are other cities around the world, and one in North Carolina, of course, Charlotte, North Carolina, and they do have a celebration in her honor. And if we look at our connection between North Carolina, Virginia, many of the counties are named, of course, from the British, from the United Kingdom. So that's what's important. But the reason that I was really intrigued and interested in Queen Charlotte is not only did she have an impressive background on her own, but she also had African heritage. So that's really what intrigued me about her. I didn't know anything about her African heritage until about 7 years ago. And Charlene Green from the city of Charlottesville, she convened a meeting to discuss Queen Charlotte. And at that meeting was a gentleman by the name of Mario Valdez. And he is a scholar located in Boston, and he came and shared this information, saying that she descended from the Portuguese royal house. And the Portuguese royal house, they descend from the Moors, so they would be what we would consider contemporary black people. Most people, and that's why we had a brochure created, and this is the picture that we always see painted. This is a very famous picture of Queen Charlotte, but you can see that she looks more European. I always say, but they forgot to do her hair, and you know that black people, we have distinct hair. So I always say they forgot to do her hair when they whitewashed her, but they didn't do a press and curl. So for people who are African descent, they'll understand what I mean by press and curl. It just means it's not straight. But then Alan Ramsey, who was a very well-known artist. He was the artist for the royal family. He painted her in the likeness that he actually saw her. So if you look at her and you look at me, our complexions are very similar. So she was a lot browner in person.
I love it, and I'll hold this up.
Yes.
Let's go to and I'm going to throw a question to her, but I want to show the before. Is it before and after?
This is how you would see her in contemporary society.
Okay.
And then the back was the painting that is a famous painting, but it's kind of was hidden in the basement.
I did some research for the show, and you're the expert. I'm the layman. You're the star. I'm just here trying to keep pace and tempo here. When I did some research for the show, I was startled to find that early historians were in some ways trying to disguise her African descent. And it wasn't toward later historians when they really rolled their sleeves up and showed the authenticity or what actually was the case and started highlighting her African descent. Put that in perspective for us.
Well, what happens is we know that in history, we try to cover things up. It's just the same way here in Charlottesville when we talk about President Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings.
Right.
She would have also been a woman of color. And you can just take the stroke of your paint and of your brush and change people's color because we want them to look how we think they should look. In reality, the people during that period of time, they knew that she was a woman of color. They even depicted her in saying that she was ugly, that she was a crooked. But her doctor, there was a doctor, last name was Stockmar, and he said that she had truly a mulatto face because there were many people, not just Queen Charlotte, who lived in Britain who were of mixed race ancestry. She would not have considered herself a black woman. She was a German royal woman. But in contemporary times, with the one-drop rule and with Ancestry, we would definitely consider her a woman of color, just like today. And I want to say congratulations on the new royal baby.
Yes.
That's very exciting. So we see, the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, and Harry. They just welcomed a new baby boy today, and so we should celebrate. I love babies, So
I have a 13-month-old.
Oh, do you?
I'm right in the thick.
I love babies. We love babies in our family, and so we want to definitely send congratulations. I'm sending them on behalf of myself, and I'll step out a little bit and send them on behalf of the Queen Charlotte Society as well, because it's very exciting. But as what I was about to say is that if we would just see Meghan Markle alone, she looks like she could pass as a white woman or a mixed race woman, but her mother is of African ancestry. And
I have a huge crush on her.
She's beautiful.
Huge crush.
Yeah.
And talented and intelligent.
Talented, yes.
It's so dynamic in the show Suits. In fact, when she left the show, I thought it flopped.
Yes, she's very talented. So I'm happy for
What a
them.
catch.
Yeah. That's right. But I'm so excited that they're welcoming building their family, and I hope that they will have maybe at least another baby after this one. Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah.
So perfect timing. That's another sizzle reel. Start with the who, what, when, where, why question that I asked, all the way through that answer. You are blowing the feed up. People love you.
Oh,
okay,
that's
so let me.
wonderful.
Karen Pearson says you rock, cuz.
Thank you.
You're looking great right now.
Karen's my cousin. Yes, she's on my mom's side.
Help me with this name right here. Z.
Oh, that's Z Sunny.
Sunny Miller.
Z. Yeah, she's great.
She says, thank you so much for bringing the history of our much-loved Queen Charlotte to light. We
yes,
need you to do this.
We do need to do this.
And then help me this right here. Is that Renate?
Yeah, that's Renata. Yeah,
Renata
hi, Renata.
Yarborough-Saunders.
These are all of my genealogy pals.
She says, go.
We're always digging up dead people.
You're always digging up. Okay, I got to ask you that question. What are you digging up dead people? What are you doing over there?
Well, we love, because we feel like those of us who are in genealogy, we are part of a universal family. We don't just have one heritage. We have multiple heritages. And so we celebrate that, which I think is really important and brings us closer together as a nation.
Amen.
And as an international body of people. We have to care about everyone. It's important. It doesn't matter if you're from Scotland, if you're from Kenya, if you're from the United States. We have to honor all of our heritage.
I love that. I just love what you said. And I'm going to relay some firsthand perspective, then throw it back to you. So I'm a proud Cuban American. My mother and my Miva and my papi, her parents, came from Cuba a few months before Castro implemented, and iron-fisted his communist regime in Cuba. She was told under the cloak of darkness around midnight or 1 a.m. when she was in the first grade, you can only bring with you what you can carry in a backpack.
Wow.
We're going to leave our home that we own. We're going to leave middle, upper class jobs in Cuba, and we're going to go on this barge, on the bottom of the barge, and we're going to head from Cuba around 1 in the morning under the cloak of darkness because it was safe, and we're going to head to Miami. And in Miami, they then started Poppy as a ditch digger, working for the city, and Mima as a hotel maid. And my mom was put into an English-speaking school without being able to speak English whatsoever.
Oh, my goodness.
She relays the story to this day, and she gets emotional because of the, I would call it the PTSD that she experienced as a student when people were making fun of her. And she couldn't understand it, but she understood that they were making fun of her. So where I'm going with this, and I'm going to throw it back to you, in 2019, we need to celebrate and we need to champion diversity.
Absolutely.
And we need to champion the fact that America is a melting pot of every culture in the
Absolutely.
world. And I don't understand concepts, and I'm not even going to go down this road, but I'll throw it out there. I don't understand concepts of trying to build walls around the country.
We shouldn't be building any walls. We should not be building any walls. And the story that you just shared about your family, that is a modern day story. That's not something that happened, in the 1700s. That's a modern
1958.
Day. Yeah, 1958. And so it's really important that we share culture, that we understand. And America is unique and wonderful and great because we have so many different cultures. We have food, we have music, we have history. That is what makes us unique. And that's what we should support. We should not be building any walls. at all.
I love that. I love that. Let's start with my anecdote all the way through her answer for a sizzle reel, because she's on point and she's bringing the fire, baby. I love the energy that you're bringing to the show today. How about more of the Queen Charlotte celebration? Give us some dates, some locations, what we can expect.
Okay, great. This year, it will be our 6th year celebrating the Queen Charlotte's birthday. And anyone who's available is welcome to come. Young, old, it's free of charge. Last year, we had a great celebration. It rained a little bit, so we were inside. But this year, we had the unique opportunity to partner with the bridge. And so we'll have local people, artists who will be singing, who will have paintings. You can purchase paintings, and all of those contributions will go directly to support the bridge. So we'll have cupcakes, Charlotte Russe when you come. Charlotte Russe is just basically a cupcake with a cherry on top.
Love it.
Yeah, so we'll have that, and then we'll have, some refreshments, other refreshments for people who want to attend. But we're really extremely happy to be partnering with the bridge. And so it will be on Sunday, May the 19th, at the bridge from 2 until 4. You don't have to RSVP, just come.
I love it. And Sarah Hill Buczynski, she's watching in Crozet, big fan of the show. Sarah Hill Buczynski, we're big fans of you. She says, I love what you guys are talking about. And let me add one more thing. And how about we just be kind in America?
Absolutely. And when we talk about kindness, let me say a little bit about Queen Charlotte. One of the reasons that I think it's important that we acknowledge this queen is because of the history. There are royal babies born every day. There are royal people all throughout the world. But we don't typically celebrate them because our history is really not connected. So when we talk about being kind and we talk about this queen, being a queen is not to be pompous. It is to provide leadership for your nation and for your people. Well said. And so Queen Charlotte was the mother of 15 children. And 13 of them lived through, to be an adult. But she was a patron of the arts. She had established orphanages, and for maternal health for women. She was known to be a kind woman. And so that's what's really important about Queen Charlotte. That's why I think I've taken a liking to her.
I love it. And I've taken a liking to you. You're a wordsmith. You are eloquent. You have the gift of human connection. You're able to take a topic, an open-ended question like I'm throwing to you. Mm-hmm. We have that. You're a speaker. I totally see it. I totally see your talent right there. Kristen Zakos, former city councilor, is loving.
Yeah, I love Kristen.
Loving the show right now. Gloria Braxton, thank you for liking the show. Walt Blow, thank you for watching the show. Give the show a like and a share. Jonathan Galasso in Richmond, Bill Granford in D.C. Give it a like. Give it a share. Terry Cadell, John Updike, Mark Lickman, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let me throw this to you. I would think that regardless of time, whether this was 1919, 1929, 1959, 1969, or 2019, we should be celebrating the namesake of our town.
We should be.
Especially in a town as that prides itself in its historical traditions like Charlottesville does. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, undoubtedly we should be celebrating this. Mm-hmm. And where I'm going with this, especially post August 11th and August 12th.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's a no-brainer here.
It's a no-brainer.
Put that in perspective for me.
Charlottesville is still suffering from the injury of August 11th and 12th. I was really upset and shocked, like most people around the world, of what happened in this community. We are healing, but these are still a lot of very deep wounds in this area, where anytime that you oppress people, and we know of the enslaved people, we know of what I would call the poison and the menace of white supremacy.
Well said.
No one is supreme. No one. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, what socioeconomic bracket you're in. We're not superior to people. The sooner we learn that, the better. And one of the things that we can do, Queen Charlotte, whether we build a statue, we have a memorial or a monument, that would be something that would bring our community together as one of the tools to heal. There are a lot of things that have to be done in this community, and there are a lot of great people in this community who are working to try to make sure that harm does not come to this community again. We lost a citizen in this community, and there were other citizens who were injured, and they're still suffering with those injuries. So if we want this to be a queen city and a number one city, we still have a lot of work to do, and this would just be one tool to help us to get there.
That right there is the best sizzle reel so far. Please start with my commentary and go through that answer. That was absolutely amazing. I agree 1,000%. 1,000% with you. I want to highlight this, and I started the program with this. There's a statue of Robert E. Lee. There's a statue of Lewis and Clark with a cowering Sacagawea. We talked about this off air. There is not a statue that champions an African-American male or female in Charlottesville city limits. The show is yours.
And that is something that we really need to change.
Needs to change.
It needs to change. Charlottesville, just like the rest of America, was built by the free labor of enslaved persons here. There are many people from history who are African American, whether it's a man or a woman, who could be honored in this community. And that would be something I would think that the city and the citizens could discuss. And it doesn't have to be one statue. It could be multiple statues or some type of plaque to honor the contributions of African Americans. It really is a shame that we don't have a statue here to honor someone because we know that there are plenty of people here who could be honored.
Dan Barnes, thank you for liking the show. Bill Granford, John Gilmore, Grace Maja, thank you for liking and sharing the show. Terry Cadell, thank you for giving it a like and a share. Ray, welcome to the program. Give the show a like, give the show a share. 4 people work hard to put the broadcast on. All we ask is for a like and a share in return. We had a very amazing, and we had a 2-part conversation. He did 1 full hour with us and then came back for a 2nd hour with Carl Brown, who's a great friend for the program. And I asked him about the best approach to the statues in the area. And my mindset has changed. Initially, my mindset was these statues that are out here, they will not, if we move them, will not change history. And then I was outside the Macklin building, and I was outside the building primarily because I wanted to relay firsthand perspective to my son about what happened when he got to history class. And then I saw evil and sin that I'd never seen before, and I could not shake it for 90 days. And then finally, this was the impetus of that. I wanted to do my small part to help make Charlottesville great and to spotlight influencers and leaders and people that are making the community better like yourself.
Right.
And here's where I'm going with this is after August 11th and 12th, I then changed my mind. And I said the statues need to be moved. I understand that the statues cannot be moved by city council, that it is a state issue.
It is.
Okay, not a local issue. But they need to be positioned perhaps in places like museums. I relayed this to Carl Brown. Carl Brown said, have you considered this idea? Perhaps you consider you leave the statues in the parks, and instead of moving them, perhaps you build a statue of someone like me, an African-American male, or someone like my wife, an African-American female, right next to the Robert E. Lee statue.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe that would have even a bigger impact than putting the statue in a museum. Thoughts? The show is yours.
You know, my thoughts were almost identical to yours. I had the privilege of serving on the President's Commission on Slavery in the University at the University of Virginia. And while I was on that committee, on that commission, there were a number of people who said we shouldn't move the statues because it is history. And I was one of those individuals who said, maybe we shouldn't move those statues, maybe we should build other things around until August 12th. And when that carnage occurred, then that changed my mind. Because if something is going to bring people out to harm our citizens or harm our community, then maybe it needs to go. But I still think we need to have conversation on building something around that's positive and leaving it there. It's very difficult to change history and statues, because the way that I feel passionately about building a Queen Charlotte statue and building statues here that honor African American history, those people who support Robert E. Lee, they feel the same passion. So we may need to, instead of fighting, we may need to have money donated, raise money to put it in context and build other statues that celebrate people that weren't on that side of history.
I love that answer. I mean, I love that answer because that answer is coming from so many different, layers of the onion or sides of the coin. Because you are a historian and you pride yourself in being a talented historian, and you understand that history is important to us. So maybe from that side, you see not the value, but the importance of the statues. You're also an African American woman, and you also saw the damage that happened on August 12th.
Yeah.
And it was terrible.
So
you're literally seeing it from all three sides. Did you catch grief at all from anyone else in the African American community when you said the statue should not be moved? Because I caught grief when I said it.
Initially, yes.
That's me too.
Initially, yes. And I didn't change my mind until after August 12th. And when it happened, then I thought that needs to go. But initially, I caught a little grief, but not a lot, because
you backed it up.
Because I backed it up, and I said sometimes we need to move on and be progressive and be positive, because the people who are your adversaries, they're not going to stop being the adversary. They think that they're right and that statue should stay there.
Good answer. Good answer. August 11th, August 12th, your perspective, what you saw, and how the community has evolved since.
Well, I think that the community, through dialogue, through education, through meetings that they've had since then, I think the community is moving in a very positive direction. When it happened, as I said, I was on the President's Commission, and I was watching it on my computer just like everyone else. But I will tell you, on August 11th was my late sister's birthday. And so on that date, and she's been deceased for over 25 years now, but I always remember her on that day. So I was a little, just kind of being a little easy that day. And when I was seeing the tiki torches come across the University of Virginia, I was horrified.
Right, me too.
And for the first time, I remembered, and my late father would talk about things that would happen with cross burnings, and things in West Virginia and in Virginia. People had to always be on guard. Well, I was never really on guard like that. I never thought I would see tiki torches and white supremacy.
In 2017.
In 2017. I never thought about that. And I have two daughters. And my youngest daughter, her birthday is August the 9th, and she would have been on the corner, but she and a friend decided to go to Miami, so they weren't in town. But if I would have just been
She would have been downtown?
She would have been downtown. She
Yeah.
would have been there.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that she wasn't. But I was really shocked and horrified at what happened. And it wasn't who came to town. We have to still look at who is still in town.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Renate says, Charlottesville is still dear to my heart. I went to UVA and I lived there for 7 years. It's also the place of my oldest child's birth. Thank you for relaying that comment, Renate. Herb Porter. Herb, I love you. Open invitation anytime you want, Herb.
Thanks, Herb.
There is no York on the statue of Sacagawea. So, Herb, we'll get to that comment. There is no York on the statue of Sacagawea. I want to talk about the Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea statue in totality. It's not every day we have someone of her intellect on the program that can speak from a historical standpoint. So I definitely want to pick your brain about that. There's a lot more comments coming in. Karen says, put the statues in a museum. Tim Ryan in Crozet says, the statue should not be in public parks. We have Rick Henderson in Richmond saying we're dealing with this same damn thing in Richmond on Monument Avenue, and we're tired of it in Richmond. Herb adds, those Confederate statues will always be a focal point of white supremacists.
Absolutely.
I continue to suggest those 3 statues need to be moved to any of the numerous battlefields of Virginia. That's an interesting idea, Herb, moving them to the battlefields. Relay your comments. Thank you, Ray Cadell, for sharing the show. We appreciate you, Ray. Thank you, Donna Jenkins, for creating a watch party. We love you, Donna Jenkins. Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark statue. I'll set the stage and then get your professional opinion. So Lewis and Clark in Sacagawea, the statue is literally on the entrance to the downtown mall. When someone's going down West Main, whether it's a tourist, a local, a UVA student, they cannot help but see this. From anybody's perspective, it looks like Sacagawea is cowering in fear to Lewis and Clark. Now, there are proponents, and I've read Coy Barefoot do a very deep analysis of this, talking from the side or the viewpoint or the perspective of the artist that was commissioned to do the statue. And from the artist who was commissioned to do the statue, he said, I try to paint Sacagawea in a light where she was a guide who was studying the trail, like the footprints of the trail, to help direct Lewis and Clark on the way to go. In 2019, especially in the ubiquitous nature of these damn things, perception is reality.
It is, absolutely.
And the perception that anyone has is she's fearful of these men, and it's the exact opposite of that. Show is yours.
Well, I think with Sacagawea and for Native people, and when I say Native people, the one thing that I also want to say is historians and scholars now know that not only were people who we call natives or gave the misnomer Indians, there were also people here of African ancestry who were here, thousands of years before the Europeans arrived, and so they knew the forest and they knew the land, and so to see that statue when you first come in, that's a portal.
It's a portal.
It's a portal, and she should not be cowering. People aren't going to immediately, we're emotional, and so people won't immediately see her as a guide. They will see her as being subservient.
Especially the 2 seconds. And they're driving by.
They're driving by, and so while I understand the history, her position of being a guide and being a Native woman should be elevated, even if she has her own statue. It shouldn't be a cowering one. And as an aside, and as I mentioned earlier, in Lincoln Park in Washington, D.C., you see President Abraham Lincoln, and he has a person underfoot, and I just learned that person's name was Archer Alexander, who was related to Muhammad Ali, and I found out just recently, of course, I'm related to Muhammad Ali too. I got to get that plug in there. When you do this genealogy, you get a lot of little bonuses. But what I'm finding is that Archer Alexander was a real-life person, so people can go out and Google him, and my husband's family is related to the Archer Alexander family. So, but it's also one of those statues where it looks like he's cowering, and it doesn't put the African American man in a position of power. So during that period of time, that's how the artist rendered those. So I'm not saying that we should push them to the side, but maybe what we should do is have other artists to bring those people up to more contemporary interpretation.
I love that idea. You're basically saying it's the same thing with this.
Yes.
You're basically saying from this to this.
Yes.
With Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea.
Absolutely.
Why don't we do that?
We should. We have a lot of rich people in Charlottesville. I'm not one of them, unfortunately, but we do have a lot of people who, if we the city and the community decided that we could raise money to start. Maybe you start with Queen Charlotte and Sacagawea, because how many statues do we have of women in this community? So maybe that's what we start out in the very beginning, that we raise money to honor Queen Charlotte, Sacagawea, and perhaps another lady from the community of African American descent.
Pam McClinley says, I'm so proud of you, cousin.
Thank you.
You are killing it right now.
Thank you, Pam.
Mark McDonald, giving you love.
Thank you.
Sarah Clark, giving you love.
My
Roxana. Bangora.
Yes, we went to Savannah together.
Giving you love. I just absolutely love what is happening right now. Herb Porter says, York.
Yes, and York for sure.
He was an African-American explorer, best known for his
Yes.
participation with the Lewis and Clark expedition, enslaved by William Clark's father and passed down through a will to William Clark. He performed hard manual labor without pay, but participated as a full member of the expedition. There's no statue of York. Talk to us about this,
Yes,
please.
I agree with her 100%. And we do have a building, a structure, York Place, down on the mall, and that's named in his honor. But I agree with her 100%. We do need to have a statue to York as well. He is actually one who's been hidden. A lot of people don't know about his leading the expedition and his background. So I agree with you, her 100%. We need to do that.
I was a standout student in high school. AP US History was one of my favorite classes. I studied it inside and out. I don't know much about York.
Yes, most people don't.
Left out of textbooks.
Yes, most people don't. It's just the same as with Benjamin Banneker, who designed Washington, D.C. Because what we have done, again, is we whitewash history. And so anyone who is not white, we say, well, we know they were there, but we won't really acknowledge it. And we should. And so now what historians are saying is, no, this has to be part of the dialogue.
I love it. I love it. Xander McNeish, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us, Xander. Rock Watson, thank you kindly for joining us to the program. Grace Estrella is watching in D.C. I can't think of a better way, guys, to spend my lunch break than to learn about history in Charlottesville, she says. Like and share the program. Renate, I didn't know about York either. Thank you, Herb Porter.
Yes.
That's from Renate. She's leaving that perspective. Like and share the stream here. Let me throw this to you here. How does Charlotte, North Carolina celebrate its namesake?
Charlotte, North Carolina, they have proclamations, but also, now it's been moved, but they had a statue commissioned for Queen Charlotte that was at the airport. And this was at the old airport. So as soon as you flew in to the airport, you could see the Queen Charlotte monument to her. But they renovated the statue, and then she was moved backwards. But there's also, and I have a photograph. I'm not sure if I have it in my things here. But I went to Charlotte to visit, to do some research. And in their downtown, they have this beautiful statue of Queen Charlotte, and she's with her little doggies there. And so they do a lot of things, and when you go to the Queen City, you see pictures of her. There's a gallery there called the Mint, where you will see pictures of Queen Charlotte. So they really do embrace her legacy and her patronage and her persona.
Herb says there's a statue of York at Riverfront Plaza, Belvedere, in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
I did not know that at all. Queen Charlotte has been, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Okay.
Queen Charlotte has been the inspiration and namesake of a number. I think it's 8 different cities in North America. 8 cities, guys, in North America. And Charlottesville, I would say this. You know what? This is something that came up on the show on Friday. You'll appreciate this as a history buff.
Okay.
We had Jim Carpenter on the program. He's an activist and a historian in the community, also a photographer. The Vietnam Memorial at Dogwood on 250. It is the first Vietnam memorial in the entire country.
Really?
It honors 28 soldiers from Central Virginia who have fallen, who died in battle.
I didn't know it was the first.
The first one. And listen to this, is crazy. This memorial is so inaccessible and inconvenient for people that folks have to park in the rescue squad parking lot and then meander across down a grassy knoll, across streets, and don't have a parking lot that's close to them. So where I'm going with this is there's so many elements in Charlottesville, and it prides itself in this, like, and I love Charlottesville. My company's called I Love CVille.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's so many Jeffersonian Renaissance elements of Charlottesville where we pride ourselves in being this, like, you know, wide perspective, robust perspective, cosmopolitan mindset, a University of Virginia influenced community. And yet we have Queen Charlotte being an afterthought and the first Vietnam memorial in the country being inaccessible.
Well, that saddens me. I didn't know about the, the Vietnam memorial being the first. And of course, I know where it's located. It needs to be accessible.
Amen.
And if we... if we want people to really learn about our history, people have to be able to get there and not be relegated to, well, maybe I can get there, maybe I can't. Just like when we go to Montpelier and we go to Monticello and we go to Highland, these places have people coming from all over the world to visit. And so if we build a statue to honor Queen Charlotte, it needs to be accessible to people. Any statue that we build, people have to be able to get there. That's a shame that you can't get there. That's a huge sacrifice that men and women have made, and we want to be able to get
and
there.
oftentimes the folks that are trying to get there are their fellow brothers who fought with them, and or their family who are now older in age. So walking is something that's a handicap.
It's a handicap.
It's a handicap,
right? You're not able to access it, and it's not a good thing. So we have to think about these things.
I love you are challenging me in ways I'm not often challenged on the show. Let me throw this to you here.
Okay.
Your thoughts on start open-ended. Thomas Jefferson. It's a hot topic.
Thomas Jefferson. You have to be careful about saying.
In Charlottesville. It's all right. Only 250,000 people will watch this over 30 days.
Because this is what I call Thomas Jefferson land. But I like to also put people in the context of their time. I do refer to Charlottesville as Thomas Jefferson land. My family was part of the descendant community of Montpelier as well as Monticello. So I would see Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, Henry Clay. Those were men of their time. They were remarkable in terms of building this nation. They were intelligent, driven, but the dark side is they also owned and oppressed enslaved Africans. And they
among other things. Yeah.
So that part of history for them is not good.
No.
And we take the good with the bad, but it's not good. So always my initial response when I'm responding to any of the men.
You threw a little contingency in there.
Yeah. It's that we're looking at a period of time when this country was very, very dark.
Are you basically saying that they didn't know any better?
No, they did know better, because there were men and women at the time, whether they were abolitionists. Sometimes these were choices, who they did not support slavery.
Okay.
So, but the other
it's a moral standard.
It is moral. But the other thing, and this is not to give an excuse to any of these men or women, but we were the money. We were property. Now, how we can justify that is another conversation. But you're not willing to give up your money. So if I'm the money and I'm worth $500 and you need to sell me, you're going to sell me because you have not bonded to me as a human being. That is the real critical discussion that we need to have. People's humanity. So I'm really happy now that Montpelier, Monticello, Highland, Mount Vernon, all of these presidential homes, and we have the Civil War Museum, I believe, in Richmond, that they're taking a perspective and making it a more human story, which is really important. So I believe that we're moving in.
We're evolving.
We're evolving,
yeah.
And we're moving in the right direction. We're no longer making making it a patriarchal system of white supremacy, and without acknowledging that we would not have any of these presidential homes, and these presidents would have not been able to have accomplished all that they accomplished without enslaved labor.
Right, that's so true. Judy McCarthy Harmon, thank you for joining us. Ted Anderson, Stacy Brookman, thank you for joining us. I mean, a lot of folks make the argument, and I was having this conversation last week with a good friend of this program, and Sally Hemings came up, and I made the comment that Thomas Jefferson had a relationship with, a love-based relationship with Sally Hemings, and she quickly corrected me and says, "You have no idea it was a love-based relationship."
Yeah.
It could have been rape. It could have been Sally was Thomas Jefferson's property, and he chose to pursue a relationship against her will. And those are conversations that oftentimes are not had, especially in a town like Charlottesville.
Absolutely.
So I'll throw that to you. And then the second question I want to throw to you is the evolution of, say, the Thomas Jefferson brand, if you may, as we head forward into the future.
Well, I have to say that I would agree with the guest that you alluded to. We don't know what that relationship was, but we don't know either way.
Right, we don't know either way.
We don't know. And so I do know people who descend from Sally Hemings. And the other thing that we have to look at is Sally Hemings was, if we're looking at her genetically, she had more European ancestry than she had African ancestry. And she was also the half-sister of his wife. She was the half-sister. They had the same father. Oh, my goodness. A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
I didn't know that.
So
did you know that, Harris? I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. So she probably looked, and she was around Thomas Jefferson all of her life. So those are some questions as historians that we will never know the answer to. But the point of the matter is that she was, regardless of her skin color, she was still an enslaved woman. Right. And today her ancestors live, throughout the country, and they come back to Monticello, and they have reunions there, and the white ancestors and the ancestors of the enslaved, and they're forging their relationships. So we don't know.
Do they embrace Thomas Jefferson?
They do.
Yeah?
They do.
Yeah. Because, and they say that, they take the mindset of this was happening in that time.
That's what was happening, and they are the physical manifestation of what happened during that period of time. And so
fascinating.
We're really talking about people's family. We don't know what happened then, but we do know that genetically there are children and fourth great grandchildren who descend from Thomas Jefferson. And as well as other people, George, like I'm a Clay. I'm related not only to Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, but I'm also related to the abolitionist Cassius Clay and Senator Henry Clay. So many of us in this country, if you have African American ancestry, you probably have 70-30 European.
I love it. Harris Tolber, I'm gonna weave you in here in a matter of moments, okay? So get ready to fire away. How do you see the TJ brand evolving?
I think that as long as we can move in a direction of honesty and humanity.
You're saying acknowledging he did these things.
Acknowledging.
Yeah, I totally agree. We have to do that.
We cannot sweep it. And that's what historians did before.
Right.
You would go and you'd visit the house and people would talk about...
He doesn't walk on water.
No, how great he was.
Yeah.
And we're not saying eliminate that, but we have to look at him as a man and what he did and damages, not just Thomas Jefferson, but all of them. It was what I would call was the white man's club.
Right.
These men were friends. When you go down to City Hall and you see the three men engraved onto a building.
On arguably the most important building in Charlottesville, City Hall.
Absolutely, and they are all there. They were part of the history. They are ensconced in history, and we have to be very careful not to remove these things. But we also have to be very honest and not say, oh, he was just wonderful, and then, and these were the happy slaves. No one in their right mind would think that anyone would be a happy slave.
Harris Tolber, jump in here. Show is yours, sir. Give us some perspective.
I'm learning so much from this interview, Leontyne. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this knowledge. I think it's really important for us as Charlottesville citizens to understand, this history and the nitty gritty and like what really happened. And that's the beautiful thing about history is like a lot of times the way it gets recorded, it can be almost a game of like essentially telephone based on who's telling the story. So it's important that we look at what's, try to figure out for ourselves what really happened. And that's why I really love hearing these things. I appreciate you sharing them.
I totally agree with that telephone analogy too. It totally depends on a lot of times on who's relaying the perspective to you. And I think one of the things we're trying to do with this show is to have as many different perspectives and as much robust perspective out here, and to use our small influence and to have that conversation go in any direction when you want. I think, and I'm going to throw this to you. I think one of the, I'm a glasses half full person. I get
Me
you're the
too.
same thing.
I'm the
I'm the
same.
same way. We're positive
I'm the
people.
same.
You came in and immediately, and I don't want to speak for the guys. Immediately, I felt an energy. I was like magnetized to you. I'm like, she loves life.
I do.
She has a passion for what she does. She has a passion for living. You just have that energy, and I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
I want to throw this to you here. I'm trying to find a glasses half full type perspective since A11 and A12. One of the things I've noticed, and I've talked about this with a number of folks, I'll throw it to you. Since A11 and A12, we've had dialogues that we've never had perhaps before. And those dialogues, and I'm not even going to say are like the solutions. They're just the first step to finding the solutions, the conversations. Your thoughts on what you've seen in Charlottesville and in Central Virginia post A11, post A12, and how the community has improved and where it also needs to go.
Well, let me just say this, because we're talking about leadership, and as I said, a queen is a leader. And I know that I'll probably get some pushback from this, but just as we have mothers and fathers or parents in a family, those are the leaders in the family. And so leadership comes from the top. And if the leader says that certain behavior is okay, then that's what the people will follow, whether it's good or bad. And so I think that Charlottesville, in 2017, August 2017, we also had an election at that time. And I think that the leadership and the result of that election pulled back the rug on some worms. And the worms should have been burrowed down into the earth and dead, but they weren't.
A lot
they
of
were
times,
still there.
a lot of times, and this is just me
They weren't
included
there.
being naive, I didn't realize how many worms were actually out there.
There are a lot of worms.
Yeah.
And those worms, well, let me instead of calling them worms, let me refer to them as caterpillars. And, a caterpillar is supposed to evolve and become beautiful. But if it's not in the right make, it could die or it could become ugly. And so I am an optimist.
Me too.
And I think that people in this community and in this state and in this nation, they want the best for everyone. But the leadership has to say, we need to have the best for everyone. And if the leadership is not saying that, then those people who might feel like they're on the margin or that no one's listening to them, it's like if you have a kid and the kid acts up and you have to pay more attention to that child to say, you can't act up, here are the consequences. That's what we're talking about with leadership. In Charlottesville, we still have issues of low wages. We're trying to work on that. We still have issues with affordable. I mean, when I moved here from Maryland, I was like, Lord have mercy, I'm going to have to go build a hut and live somewhere. It's very expensive still to live here. Right. So we still have issues with affordable housing. Those issues haven't gone away. But the good thing is that we have people in this community who are working to make this a better community. And sometimes you work independently, sometimes you work with a group, but what's important is that each of us feels a responsibility to work in some way to make the community in which we live a better place for all of us.
That was an amazing answer. That's a perfect way to close the program. We filled an hour. It's felt like 10 minutes. It's a testament to you. Sarah Hill Buczynski says, I love history and genealogy. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge.
Thank
You
you.
absolutely crushed it.
Thank
She says, another great show. I included you guys in a tag on a stream, so maybe you guys could friend each other on social. Okay. Elizabeth Dugas, I'm sorry if I'm messing your last name up, Elizabeth. She's watching. She says, great show. John Wyatt, thank you kindly for watching the show on Keswick. Layla Yale Graham is watching. Like and share the stream. I thought you were amazing. May we invite you back?
Absolutely. I would love to come back.
Okay. I think maybe what we do next time, and Harris, this is what I'm thinking, is potentially like a round table type discussion.
Oh, that would be great.
You know, where we have like 3 or 4 of us, 5,
Yes,
4 of us,
that
and
would
we're
be
just
great.
all talking.
That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful.
I would
That
love
would be
to come
wonderful.
back.
Herb says, great job, guys. Renee says, make sure you help Jerry with my name. I'm sorry, Renee. I'm sorry, Renee.
Listen, I have a lot of problems with my own name, Renata.
Is it Renata?
Renata.
Damn it, Renata. I'm sorry, Renata. Please accept my forgiveness. She says, I'm so proud of you. This was an excellent interview. Your heart and your intellect were both shining. You go, girl.
Thank you,
And
dear.
I second that. We close the program the same way every single time. First, I want to give thanks to Harris Tolber. I want to give thanks to Judah Wickower and Lauren Linsky. I have the easy job. I have to sit in front of this microphone and be myself. They have the hard job. They keep us on track. They make the show look good. They keep us online. They edit and they do the post-production. They do the syndication of the content. It's teamwork to make the dream work. And it certainly is epitomized here at V&V Brands and I Love CVille. We close the show the same way every time. The show was absolutely fantastic. Guys, please, I'm not going to make this about religion. I'm going to make this about the golden rule, however. Treat others how you want to be treated yourself. I'll say it again. Treat others how you want to be treated yourself, and watch how it has an incredible positive impact in our community. Charlottesville needs it now more than ever. Treat others how you want to be treated yourself, and watch as you'll be a leader and how you'll lead a charge of positivity and good energy throughout Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, and the world. The golden rule. I'm Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show. Tomorrow, live music. Laura Kelly on the program. We have, what is it, a 4 or 5 piece band tomorrow? 4 pieces? 3 or 4 pieces on the show tomorrow. I think Michael Clem is going to join us again. Guys, I love connecting with you guys through this platform. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Wow.
You killed it.
That was great.
You killed it.
Thank
We filled an hour. It
Oh,
flew
we
by.
did. It didn't even seem like it was an hour.
It was 1:32.
Wow. This was great.
Absolutely
Thank
amazing.
You.
I was so impressed with your knowledge. I mean, you can talk about anything.
I love this stuff.
I can tell. And people responded so well.
Yeah, most of those people, they're like, because we're like addicted to genealogy and research.
May I get your phone number?
Sure, it's